Hi guys, Jennifer from Make It Sweet here. I want to show you how to make homemade butter. Oh my gosh, I don't think there's much better than homemade butter to go with homemade bread or English muffins or anything that you're making. So just delicious, and it's so easy. You probably all remember back to, to times when you were in elementary school or nursery school, and they would put some cream into a little jar and you had to shake and shake and shake and shake, and then it would make a little bit of butter. We're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to ramp it up with a little bit of different flavor, and then we're going to let the mixer do all the shaking for us. So I'm actually putting a little bit of sour cream in here. So I'm going to start with 1 cup of sour cream, and that's just going to make it taste a little bit more like a European butter. You know how European butters have kind of that little zing, that little zip to it. It's not just that sweet cream butter. It has a little additional flavor to it. So that's what the sour cream is going to do for me. So 1 cup of sour cream to 1 quart of our heavy cream. And so this is heavy whipping cream. There we go. And this is going to make 1 pound of butter. So all of that in. And even though I'm going to want this to be salted, you don't start with your flavor yet. You need to wait and then add your flavor later. Because if you add your flavor now, what's going to happen as it develops the solids, it's all going to go into the liquid. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some plastic wrap around here, because if we don't put plastic wrap, we're going to have water just shooting out all over the place. It's going to be crazy. Wait till you see what's going to happen. So I'm going to wrap this whole thing in plastic. There we go. Make sure it's secure, that I can still get to the controls here. And I'm going to bring this all the way up to high. And now this is going to take a couple of minutes for this to all come together. So it's what's going to end up happening is that you're going to have solids separate from your liquids. So you're going to have your butter and you're going to have your buttermilk. And so what you'll end up with is buttermilk. So end up saving it if you want to. You can save it and you can use that for waffles or use it for other recipes. Marinate chicken in it. There's all kinds of things you can use your buttermilk for. So it's not just something that you have to just throw away. But by doing it this way, and by not having my salt in here at this point, then it's just plain buttermilk, and then you would be able to use it for other things. Once it all comes together, then I'm going to put the solids into our strainer and strain off the buttermilk. And that, when we have all of our solids, we'll put that back in the mixer, and then be able to add our salt. So we have about 2 teaspoons of kosher salt here that we'll be able to add in. And at this point, it's still just whipped cream, is where we are right now. So we're using the glass bowl so that hopefully you can kind of see what's going on with this. But you've probably all made whipped cream and taken it just a little too far, where it's like, a little grainy. That's on the way to making butter. And so that's where we are right now. So the whipped cream is definitely past what I would want to put on a dessert part, and moving into that phase where it's going to come together. But eventually what's going to end up happening is that it's going to spray water all the way up here. So it's going to cover all the areas on our plastic wrap. It's just fun to watch. and fun to see the whole process. And so I think that, it's just kind of amazing to know that you can do this with just some heavy cream and make butter. It's fun. Magda and I did this for a charity event that we were doing where I wanted to make butter for a recipe, and I can't tell you how many pounds and pounds and pounds of butter we made for that. And then yesterday when Magda was putting together the kits, I think she probably had, like flashbacks to those days, because we were using our big 20-quart mixer and making the butter from there. So it goes a little faster with a bigger mixer, but the more that you're doing, a little bit longer it takes for it. All right, so it is definitely grainy in here. I don't know if the overhead shot will kind of show you what it looks like. So I'll pull this away for just a second so that you can see. So see how it looks kind of grainy. It's not what you would be looking for whipped cream. And what's going to start happening is that the butter is going to start separating from it in just a little bit. There we go. Cleanliness first, right? I don't want buttermilk spraying all over the place. That would be a horrible mess. So when we were doing regular live classes, we would do this in our English muffins class, and we would make butter in the English muffins class. And the fun part was we would have like six mixers all going at once, and it would be crazy loud in our classroom. But then everyone would get so excited as soon as as soon as the buttermilk starts separating from the butter. Everyone would go and be looking into the bowl, and it would be lots of excitement with it. And I was surprised by how many people had not made butter before. It's delicious. And once you've tasted homemade butter, you're not going to want to go back to the store-bought butter. You're going to want to make your butter regularly. I can't say that I do it all the time, but for special occasions, it's fun to do. Plus, you can shape it into shapes. You can use molds. You can use all kinds of fun stuff with it. All right. I don't walk away from the mixer when it's going like this, because you just never know exactly how long it's going to take. So don't just, be doing something else and walk away and then come back, and then you're going to have water, your buttermilk all over the place. Because once it starts spraying up here, you're going to have to be careful to make sure that you don't just let it go for too long. All right. It's getting there. I promise it's getting there. It's definitely looking thicker and thicker. And we're going to probably start to be able to see it separating down here, where on the glass bowl, where it's the buttermilk and the butter separating. And you don't need your cream to be room temperature or anything. It can be just pulled from the fridge. That's absolutely fine. Imagine trying to do this with the churn, imagine the work that would go into making butter in the old days. This is the easy way of doing it. So we have it much, much easier than our ancestors did when they were making butter. You don't ever have to worry about stopping and scraping down. It's all gonna come together as it is processing and as it's working. So I can see it starting to kind of clump together a little bit. So we're getting close. So if you do have kids and you want to, give them something to do, put just some cream, and if you want to add some sour cream into it, you can. Put it into a little jar and then have them shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it, and they'll end up making butter. So it's a fun way of kind of using some energy and making something really fun. All right, we're getting closer. I say that every time. It's kind of like, you know, like a pot, you know, if you're watching a pot of water and waiting for it to boil, you know, it's the same kind of thing. You know, we're waiting for this to get there, and it's just like the more I look at it, probably the longer it takes. So I just need to look away for a minute and then look back in just a bit. All right. See, now it looks like curds. And so it has a very different look than before. The mixer is doing a lot of work here. I'm just glad it's not my arm doing all this work. That would be a lot to do. I have made whipped cream by hand, and that's a lot of work just getting to whipped cream. But then getting to butter would be a whole other category. All right. Can you see how it's starting to spatter up on the top here? If you look in the bowl, you can see that it's liquid separate from solids, and it's really, really spattering up on my plastic here. And here we go. It is now butter. Woohoo! It's nice and quiet in here now. All right, so look at all of this liquid here that was on my plastic. So lots of liquid. And like, imagine if we didn't have the plastic on, what a mess that would be. And now look in the bowl. So look, we have the butter separate from our buttermilk. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to separate this out. Let me push my mixer here. And so I just have my strainer here, and I'm going to take the butter. Here we go. And I'm going to pull out the rest of this. So that's buttermilk and our butter. And it just smells so good. All right. And so now you could go ahead and you could kind of push on this a little bit more, get some more liquid out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back into our mixing bowl. So I'm going to put it back in the bowl. So it's just the butter at this point. And now I'm going to add the salt. And then we're going to put this back onto our mixer. Look at this mixer. Oh my gosh. It has buttermilk all over it. I think I'll give it a little bit of a wipe down first. And now put this back on. There we go. Put our whip back in, or you could switch to a paddle at this point. That would be fine. Either one. We're not going to mix for very long. And now this is just going to be just a little bit of a mix. Just to get that salt incorporated. And it does kind of give off just a little bit more buttermilk. There we go. All right, that mixer's working hard. You can hear it working hard. Done. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain it one more time in case there was some extra buttermilk in here. And then this butter is ready to use. That looks beautiful. And so 1 quart of cream with the 1 cup of sour cream ends up making 1 pound of butter. And so you could use this in any recipe. You know, I would cook with it. That would be great. You know, make all your own butter. That would be fine. But I would reserve this fancier butter for things like putting it onto breads, putting it onto, you know, English muffins, toasting with it. You know, there's so much that you can do with this. So there we go. All right, I'm going to put this into a container. It will last in your fridge for you know, just like regular butter that's open. So like 10 days or so. Any longer than that, freeze it. And so you would be able to have your butter that could be frozen. You can do so much with this. You could even add other flavors to it. So let's say you wanted to make an herb butter. Now would be the time to add any herbs to it, and then be able to have herb butter that you could slice and you could form into logs, slice and put on steaks. You know, there's so much that you can do with this. So so there you go, homemade butter. Enjoy your butter, and hope to see you back in just a little bit for the rest of our class. Or thank you so much for joining us for making butter.